Welcome to Hip Hop Now Podcast. If you're from the future, you know what to do. Get your ass out of here. Don't disrespect the legend. Hip hop is here to stay. Let's get right into the business. What up, y'all? I am your host, Vegas, and this is Hip Hop Now Podcast, a podcast specifically designed to keep you caught up on all things hip hop music and culture that happened throughout the week. Big shout out to the supporters over at patreon.com/hiphopnow. And if you would like to become a supporter of this very podcast, help me grow my audience, help me grow my subscribers. I'm lingering in the 300s. I want to get to 400 and eventually 500. Visit the link in the description of that episode. But another thing you can do if you ain't got the bread is to share this podcast on your social media platforms, on your people's timeline, because you hang out with the hip hop heads in the digital space and argue about Illmatic all day. Maybe you don't do that, but I'm just saying, show love, spread love. All right. Now, this is a bonus episode of Hip Hop Now Podcast, and I typically do these when there basically are no stories. So if you came here to hear about Nicki Minaj's husband being too damn grown to be outside, like, yo, we waiting for him, man, go in the house, okay? Now you got to go in the house, okay? There's one story for you. If you here because of 50 Cent dissing Lloyd Banks and Young Buck on stage or dissing their tours, get on out of here, man. Who cares about that? He been dissing them forever. You know, nobody cares. And he brought him on a tour, well, maybe not Young Buck, but whatever. So you see what I'm saying? It's typically slow when it's about other stuff. You know, I like to provide some hip hop stuff, you know, the music, the culture, some things you can go and do and listen to. And today, this topic, I want to hear from everybody, because I know as fans, there was some artist or group that you were excited about. Like when you first heard them on a mixtape, or you first heard their debut album, in some cases, or whatever it may be, something from them being featured on somebody's album. You was like, yo, when that dude drops, he up next. But the people on this list weren't up next. So let's sit at the project window that's very high in the sky on the 24th floor, and there's bars so we don't fall out, and just dream about what could have been with a couple of artists. I have a list of 5. This ain't going to be a long episode, but I want to know from you. So feel free to put your top 5, not in any order, in the comment section, or you can just comment on those that I mentioned. Let's get into the business of this. Up first, Sauce Money. For those who were not there, for those who were not outside, maybe you came to hip hop a little bit later in life and you enjoy it, but you weren't there when it was going down. Sauce Money during Jay-Z's rise was right there with him. Crazy free, like, you shout out to Bleak, but it wasn't Bleak. It was like Sauce Money. The notorious freestyles on mixtapes, features on not only Jay-Z's album, we're not counting that one, you know what I'm talking about, but also on other people's albums, like, you know, just everything. Pre-Game. I mean, a song like Pre-Game, the way Jay-Z and Sauce Money spitting on that joint, just Sauce Money by himself had a couple crazy freestyles. This man was on a path of greatness. He was dope. He had a dope voice. I mean, record label people might say he wasn't marketable because he was kind of a big dude, but that's stupid, because he was dead nice. He was crazy nice with it. And then his album dropped. And I could not believe what I was listening to compared to what I had heard from him previously. And let me preference my or let me frame my statements correctly. My bad. I gotta get my stuff situated. The disappointment is that he's still nice, but you want to talk about a missed opportunity with an album. To me, a lot of it had to do with the nature of the times. At that time, it was acceptable for you to have bars and party record beats. And not everybody was good at meshing the two or combining the two. Jay-Z was good at it. Biggie was good at it. You know what I'm saying? Nas was sort of kind of good at it. You know, he did have a joint. That joint was Genuine. Don't Sleep. That was a great party record. Maybe the lyrics are simplistic, but I'm just talking about spitters who did party records. And the time in which Sauce Money's debut dropped, and the debut was called Middle Finger You, you just really thought you were going to get a different album. But at this time, the beats had a particular sound in hip hop, the party record beats. And when I tell you, even today, going back, that period in time does not age well. And it probably has more to do with cats not using samples, because Sauce Money would have, like, you let Primo from that time do a Sauce Money album, or anybody producing like that. And it just was such a missed opportunity, because when you hear a song like Pregame on that album, and I think the title track, nothing matches that energy. And to me, Sauce Money was dope, but he wasn't like this highly anticipated artist from a popular culture standpoint, mostly from an underground standpoint. And it just was a turnoff to those people who wanted to hear the Sauce Money from the mixtapes and all of that. So it was a complete letdown. And unfortunately, we never really got what we deserved as far as a project or music or album from Sauce Money that matched tight. You know what I'm saying? And it's bad. And I would love, because I don't know, but I would love to know that, oh, that wasn't the album that was supposed to come out. That was something else. The album that was supposed to come out was shelved because da 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 da. You should have heard it, but it's being released now. Similar to what they did with Rod Digger's album and Foxy Brown's Ill 992. It was like, damn, if those albums would have came out when they were supposed to come out, we'd be having a different conversation about these people. So there you have it, Sauce Money. Nature's debut album for all seasons. Nature and Sauce Money are almost like two in the same. Just one was with Jay-Z and the other one's with Nas. Nature came aboard to replace Cormega in the Firm. Then we figured out this dude was crazy nice with it. Freestyles, Into Deep soundtrack song. Like there was nothing that told me that Nature wasn't going to be hot and have a great career, you know. And I'm not talking about a career in general, because he does have a couple of albums out. Like he even put one out this year, hip hop, that I'm going to check out. But it does not by any means match the hype ahead of his album at that time when it was released. Like Nature was seen as a way better, and this no disrespect to Cormega, replacement in the Firm than Cormega at the time. But as history shows, Cormega got the better catalog, hands down, starting with the debut of his career or whatever. So, you know what I'm saying? It's sort of like, and the sequel, you know. But at that time, obviously, it was the Queensbridge-ness. It was the fact that he had bars that he could stand toe-to-toe with Nas, as he did on several songs. And he put out an album, and again, just like Sauce Money, for all seasons, had that vibe of that time, of that no sample, like we blame Swiss Beats for the most part, but it had the cheap beats and like party records, and it was like, nah, that those party goers, who include myself, uh, they don't want to hear nature. They don't want to hear your bars over those records. It doesn't sound like you know how to make party records. What we wanted, as the hip hop heads, we wanted the dude we heard on the Firm album, like not Phone Tap, 5 Minutes to Flush. We wanted all the freestyle nature. We wanted the In Too Deep joint. We wanted all of them versions of nature that was building his credibility up before he even had an album out. And it was just such a missed opportunity, man. Such a missed opportunity for, and maybe not just him, but maybe his label to misrepresent what people liked about him. Because on the cover, it was everything we thought it was going to be. He got a hoodie on, he on the bench, like on the chair part, like I said on my on my album. But when you press play, it was none of what you thought you was going to get. Maybe if it was early 90s, we would have got more of a boom bap grimy feel. But the majority of the album just wasn't that at all. And Nas was featured, for those who never heard that Nature album, on what's the joint, Ultimate High or whatever. But that song was cool. It just wasn't enough. So, Jay Electronica, A Written Testimony. Rest in peace to everybody who unfortunately passed away as a result of COVID-19, the coronavirus. It was lockdown and 2020, I believe, and Jay Electronica is finally putting an album out. Jay-Z's featured on it. What we didn't know was that he was featured on damn near every record, and more importantly, he was the best part of the album. Jay-Z. We'd been waiting basically 10 years for Jay Electronica to finally release the album, the follow-up to Star Wars or whatever it was, the follow-up. I forgot about it at this point. And we thought we were getting that, and we didn't. And what made it worse was Jay Electronica's performance was really, honestly, lackluster compared to Jay-Z's energy. I might have felt different about it if it was just Jay Electronica, but Jay-Z was so energized on that joint that it didn't really compliment Jay Electronica. It kind of overshadowed him, which was bad. And then he finally released the sequel to the album, Act 2, right? I guess the first one was Act 1. And that was like within the same year. And I was like, okay, this one is just Jay Electronica. And that was just like, they really should have just released them both. Because maybe you could have released a double album, and therefore it would have been about the two different vibes. I didn't mind it, but it was so forgettable. It was just so forgettable, and it was such a missed opportunity from the energy of Exhibit C that him and Just Blaze garnered. And at the time, hearing Just Blaze saying, yo, the album is done, I don't know what happened. I don't know why they did not. And I mean, I kind of know. I know the history. But in general, it just sort of felt like in 2020, when these two were released, they were finally giving us something. But they could have given us something else. I wish at that point in time it started a trend, especially since we were all on lockdown, of, Jay Electronica's working on a brand new album, but we're gonna open the vaults and just give you the joint that wasn't released. And I think in some ways they said that, but because they put out a written testimony first, it could clearly overshadow that other joint, and it killed the anticipation when cats had been waiting for 10 years to hear it. Finally, here it is. It's 2 albums, and everybody just kind of was like, and I like A Written Testimony a lot, by the way. So there you have it. Saigon. Greatest Story Never Told. Now, Saigon, similar to Source Money and Nature, kind of having parallel but different paths that kind of led to the same thing, right? You know, the whole hype, the mixtape thing, the co-sign from major artists, from the major artists, and especially for New York, and then not fulfilling that. Well, the same kind of hype around Jay Electronica also existed around Saigon, who also I believe was working with Just Blaze and had some dealings with Jay Electronica also. And he had been talking about the greatest story never told, like forever, like before '09 or whenever he was supposed to like drop. He had been talking about that album forever. He been saying it in the mixtapes, you know, the warning shot joints. And again, here you had a dude who was dope. He was highly anticipated. He was like 50 Cent before Get Rich or Die Trying. So he was like raw. He didn't care who he was talking about. And what made him really dope was that he was also conscious. So it wasn't just about the gangster stuff. You know, he was also conscious. Then he wound up having the appearance as himself on the hit HBO show Entourage. It was like the stars were aligning for this brother. And he didn't have to compromise his style. And nothing about his music was, oh, I'm going to put these party beats on here so I can have a hit. Because obviously he was dropping at a different time. Same thing like Jay Electronica. It was like a resurgence of people caring about bars and beats. And that's why Jay Elect had so much hype. And that's why Saigon had so much hype. But with Saigon, it was just them missing the window of opportunity. Unlike Jay Electronica, who took about 10 years to put something else out, or Source Money in Nature, who just the choice in beats and hooks was just the downfall of their hype. With Saigon, it was just people stopped checking for it like that. So when it came out, it was probably just me. Because that's how I felt. I felt like I was the only one who was like, oh, he dropped it. But nobody else cared about it, which was sad because it's not bad at all. See, these other albums I mentioned, Source Money album is not good. For All Seasons is not good by nature. Jay Electronica is like hit or miss, but just not. Greatest Story Never Told is a good album. And Saigon has released music for a while before he wound up on a reality show or whatever. But he just missed the window of opportunity. And most people cared more about him going to, I think that was SOBs and snuffing Prodigy than they did about his skills and the album that he put out that was not bad. It just came out too late. That's it. It's terrible, but that's it. And the final one I have is probably the poster child for this. Because when I tell you, it was just unbelievable that with all the mixtapes versus the features on other dudes' projects, other projects by other artists who were known, there was no reason for this man not to blow up because every verse was fire. And that's Cannabis with Can I Bust. I thought something was shaky when I heard, because it hadn't been announced who he was signed to. So there were people like, yo, we go to Def Jam. Then he on a Firm album, like, yo, he gonna be with them. That might be crazy too. And then it was announced that he signed with Wyclef. And at first I was kind of like, I don't know. But the Fugees were large at the time. So I was thinking like, well, maybe they could work with him where it's not just battle rap, boom bap all the time. Hey, it's kind of like some bars there, right? But maybe they can find a way to harness his skill and put out records that can maybe do some charting because it's still a business. Well, it was none of the above. That album almost sounds like it's unfinished. That's how it sounds. It sounds like We don't really have anything great, so put it out. Let's take the songs that are good and push those. Hopefully people go and buy it, get hyped, and when they press play and they don't like it, too bad, we got your money. That's what it felt like. And when I tell you, I listened to that album a million times over, trying to, at first I started to think like, well, maybe it's just me. Maybe I just want him to rap in this mode with this type of beat. And because the other records don't fit that criteria, I think they're whack. Nah, man, it just wasn't good. His follow-up was good, but by that time, the hype was gone. It was, sometimes with hip-hop heads, it could be so devastating to be that hype, to get something so lackluster or disappointing that you never check for the artist ever again. That's a damn shame, because it's okay for them to have a weak album, but that debut is important. And that follow-up is just as important, but it felt like with Cannabis, by the time you got to the second album, again, which was good, most people stopped checking for him. Most people didn't even know, or didn't want to know, or didn't care, because of what happened that first time around. They figured, oh, well, he's good for a verse or two. He's good for a freestyle on a mixtape, but a song here and there, but a whole album, I'm good. I'm not buying it. So it's terrible. In summary, I just want to say, some of these artists still put out music, and it's not all bad, to be honest. And I think in the age of streaming, if you're not going to take the chance to buy anything, I think you should at least check out some of their more recent music, or the music you missed throughout the years, just because some of them wound up putting out the albums and the projects that we wanted. Some of them did that, but we just stopped paying attention after a while. And it's the eternal struggle, especially when it comes to the 90s, of record labels targeting certain things for money, because it's the shiny suit era and everybody making money now, and signing artists because they're dope rappers and not knowing what to do with them. Like, they just didn't know what to do with them, because they didn't want to spend a lot of money. They didn't want to not spend a lot of money. And record labels got burned, and fans got burned, and albums got shelved, and some of those albums contain the things that we would have paid for, and it's just a mess. So I'm thankful we live in a time now where dudes who can actually spit have the opportunity to be independent, to pick the right beats for themselves that their fans will enjoy, and we don't have to have, this hype behind an artist. And when they put something out, it's like, oh, they trying to dance on every record now. This is trash. So what do you think about the 5 artists I named who had that potential greatness in hip hop, and it just kind of ended up in a missed opportunity? What are your 5? Because I'm curious to know, because, I try to think of everybody and who and what, but I'm pretty sure there's some people you can name that I'm like, word, I remember him. Damn, you're right. So leave your comments in the comment section below wherever you listen to this podcast. You can subscribe to the audio version on your favorite podcasting platform, or you can visit YouTube and watch the video version of this podcast, where I have an empty bottle of Hennessy in the back, because that's hip hop, right? 50 is hip hop. But also subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to get to 400. So what that means, wherever you talk hip hop, share this podcast and have debates and discussions. But make sure you bring it back to the kid homepage, get them to subscribe. And probably most importantly, if you're watching a video, hit the like button, please, because that's another way this content gets exposed to hip hop heads like me and you. Until next time, y'all, I'm not a critic, I'm a fan. Peace.